Okay, I hope everyone has followed through and used your grading that I have showed you, your flat washes, your grading wash, and not so much that you have to use your pearl. We could do that probably in this little area here. And that's it for this. I want you to continue practicing anything uh, as simple as this. And let's go on now to something just a little more detail and a little more color. I have already pre-done the, the masking tape on here, so it should be just a little bit easier to get this one started. Artists, like I said before, so happy with a piece of their work that they like to do things over again and recreate their image. And I do this so often, it's just amazing. I turn to these watercolors, which gives me just such a great effect on things. I did a piece about a year ago of some koi fish um, out in the Southwest, and I loved it so much. Wasn't sure if I could handle doing it, but I took the piece and turned it into with a pastel. I loved it so much I decided I was going to try to do that in watercolor, and I did it once, and I think I'd like to share that with you today. When we draw onto our watercolor paper, I first want to show you, I usually like to start with a good drawing, a good sketch of it. And let me show you the techniques of how I do that, which makes it easier for you. If you start with a sketch, just done in your pencil, and this is a larger sheet of paper, but if you want to put it onto your watercolor paper, you could just slip a piece of carbon under that of what you've done into your sketchbook. You do not have to take it out of your sketchbook. Put it on here and put your watercolor paper that was already sized, and you're ready to go. Other ways to do that for your beginners is you can take a piece of tracing paper, lay it on here, and start doing it very lightly on your tracing paper. Take the tracing paper and lay it right onto your sized watercolor paper. And you need to not press hard, especially with the carbon paper. Just go very lightly, and it's all you need, and you'll be ready to paint. Now, this koi piece was such a special friend of mine, and we're going to use a lot of different strokes once again, and there are some details involved, so we'll use some of the smaller brushes that you have. And let me put this piece out here and get my smaller painting out. I hope your hand is free moving and you're having a lot of fun with this, because all of us know that art is to be fun. And there we go. Okay, I'm going to look at this, make sure I have my clean water. I have my blotters ready. All right, we're going to start. This has a variety of colors. I think I'm going to add a little bit of the orange to this one. Okay, just solid orange. And once again, you can mix in your palettes before, or sometimes you can just wait till it blends in here. Let's start with a little bit of the Acrylium blue. And as you can see, I have pre-done the masking fluid on here, and they're tiny little dots. I don't know if I'm going to be using all of them, but it's a good start. So let's go ahead and add some of the blues into here. And as you can see, I'm very familiar with using this size brush. It gives me better control, and you will find that out. You just have to find your comfort zone and how you handle this. Everyone's hand is so different. And this is one of these little round circles where it's come down in here. This is a little more of different strokes for you. So think about it. Sometimes some people like to use the larger round on this. That is more comfortable for them. But as you can see, I have my pencil marks very light on this. And we can take and come up here to make a little more detail. But let's give it a whole wash first in the back. And these little lines are for my koi that comes around here. Now, I'm going to add more back in here. Bring some of it down. You'll be surprised at yourself how quickly you can have your painting done. It won't be as vibrant as if I've done a pastel. It's a little different, but that's why I like to recreate my images in watercolors. They're free, your hand moves quickly. And if you're worried about making mistakes, mistakes in watercolors are simply taking some of your spray it onto here, and then just blot it out if you're not that happy with a certain area. But they can all be recreated. Sometimes our mistakes are what we look at, and nobody else saw the mistake. Okay, let's add a little bit more green here. And I'm going to mix my green, my Viridian Green Primary Yellow. I'm going to get a little more greenish in this area here, because my trail of this water, which was at a beautiful pond, had very green into it. Now this is when you don't want the phone to ring at home or the doorbell to ring when you're right in the middle of this. It's very difficult sometimes to stop. You don't want that to happen. When you do have your support board, make sure you have enough room on each side to have for your arm. I tend to stand up all the time, and a lot of people like to just sit, but I have that tendency of standing. I'm above everything. I see it better. If you're sitting, then it's better for your support right here. I hope you're having a good time with this. And this one is great because I have such a variety of colors to work with. Let me add some blues in here. And I chose this because of the colors to blend for you. And down here I'll get a little more intricate, so I need to go ahead and change my brushes so I can come around these little nice pools on top of that. And some of this you can do at the very end, which I like to call finishing and final detailing. But let's blend all our colors in first. And here we go, the wet on wet that we talked about before. And come down around in here. Let's add a little bit more cerulean blue on this side here. This is a pond, so it had a variety of colors into it. And this was something that was a great challenge to do and a choice for all of you because of the colors and the bleeding. And here we can go ahead and add our wet on dry here. Now in this particular piece, I'm using 2 different brushes. And I use my blotting on a sponge normally. You can go ahead and use your paper towels. Since I have 2 hands holding all at one time, I have too many of my things in my hands. Now, here is where I want a variety of colors, and this is where you have to be careful. Like I said, you don't want the phone to ring or the doorbell to knock at this time. And it will happen when you're in the middle of this, blending your colors. Come around through here. And I don't really change that many brushes for myself. But you'll get that. You'll need to know, get your comfort zone and what you feel and what brushes work well for you. How long you can stand to do it, if you'd rather stand or if you'd rather sit. Now, this is the blotting that I talked to you about. I'm going to come over, because this is a pool of water. There's a lot of ripples that are coming down. This is a good exercise to work on. And we have this coming, blots right down in here. We always have a light and a dark side. So you have to remember that in mind. If you're a good photographer, you'll have no problems doing watercolor because you'll have that all set for you. Actually, the more you do art in every medium, you start looking at subjects to paint, you become a better photographer. You start photographing things as a composition. You start seeing it that way. Now, let's do the koi fish here now, and I'm going to use a round on this one because I want to get into this little sketch that I put in here. Remember, you do not have to go very hard. Do not press hard when you change to your carbon if you have a nice sketch, because it will come through too heavy on your watercolor paper. And you don't want a black line showing on here. These koi fish were interesting because they were shadowed into the water, and they were not, you couldn't tell what kind of fish it was, and it's just the way the ripples were going, so I found it a very interesting photograph. And now this is a part where I'm doing a much thicker. Remember, I talked to you before, thick or thin or layers. There's many avenues, many possibilities you can do. Let's come this way for this koi. And I believe the koi were like at the surface of the water. So the way the waterfall was coming, it was just great. There was all these wonderful little ripples and bubbles around it, so you couldn't see them. And I thought it was interesting because I'm able to make a painting out of that. And they were all kind of following each other. Okay, this is an area here where I found it very interesting, so that you could work with it. I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of lemon yellow, right in here under the surface. It's just a little bit darker in there. And it looked like a drum or a steel drum. I wasn't quite sure, but the colors are just wonderful. There is such a blend. Here I'm going to take some of my violet and drag it over in here, all the while keeping this movement for myself. I have a portion here I want to dry a little bit before I come back to it, so I'm going to take let me let this dry 1 second for a few minutes here and come right back. Okay, we're at this point here. We have a lot of the colors blended in that work real well right now. And I'm ready to take off some of the masking fluid that I had pre-put that on. And just go in and take one off. And we'll show the white. We have the little bubbles where the fish are. I can just do that with my finger. And they're at random here that I've put on. You even have some little tiny areas where the stream was coming this way and bouncing down, so I try to put these in there. Can you see the white here? Now this is just great. That's all I want. Try not to go very hard with your finger on here. It will pull up some of the paper, and we don't want that to happen. So let's just roll it. Roll it. If you apply your masking fluid pretty thick and have like a bubble to it, you're pretty assured that it's going to come up pretty quickly. And come around, and I'm sure you're able to see some of the white dots now that I have left in here. Let me go down into here. Pull this out so we can have a completed picture. I hope you're working on this with me at home. And it probably is hard to look at this and then look at your paper, but you know, that's what's going to be fun. So let me take some of this off now for you. Now I have the areas all ready that I want to lighten, and this one in particular here. And there are many times you can end up changing your mind. You don't want it that way. Just leave it, leave the tape on, and go right over. Okay, let's go. All right, I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to make this just a little bit darker in this area here. You blot this well. I'm going to bring this up. Come in. You can see where the masking fluid was right in here. I put a little bit more detail, and I put my violet, and I'm going to make these little circles where the fish were swimming in here. This one, it may be a little more detailed for you, but this is a bubble. And with that, I do have it in pencil, and you see the white that I've placed in there. I'm going to take it out a little bit, because we don't make full circles in that. We just take the fine point of our brush, come around, and they're kind of made with two different colors. I come back in and put a little bit of my blue in there. Now let's make sure that the fish are coming. You pick up with your brush some of the orange in here, because as it swirls, they are bringing their orange color all around. So let's pick some more of this up, come down around, and can you see that how it is bleeding into here? And this is the wet on dry, where you have this colors like this. And this is just a fun one to work with for you as you begin your watercolor. It'll show you how you can bleed and how the colors can go together here without it being too serious. Okay. Now, here is an example where I have more than I want right here. Just dip in here. You can press, and you can get this lighter color, lighter value in one area. Press with your finger, or you can spray it out, but that's not necessary. if it's just a small area that you want to change. Let's add a little bit of blue. Done around. Now, I'm going to use a smaller brush yet. The smaller brush is because I'm going to come down here and have just a little bit more detail. And I'm going to use a smaller round on that. So and I have put some masking fluid in some areas already that I know I want white down here. This is going to go like this. Let me come down to here. And we do that very quickly. And I'm using a smaller round one here. It's a size 4. You can even use the liner or the rigger for that one as well. But until you get the feel of this brush or the liner, I suggest using this one first. Because the hairs on a rigger are much longer and thinner, and sometimes you have to learn to control. And that's if you're sitting, it'd be wiser to hold your elbows onto the table with your rigger. But each one of you are going to develop your own comfort zone on how you do that. Okay, let's add a little bit. And we don't have to be in detail. Watercolor is not a detailed medium. We give you the feel of, and that's what's so much fun with this. Let's add just another one on this side here. Now, these are leaves, and as you can see, I am not making them in any particular detail. Just giving you the impression they're there, even though they're in the foreground. And this is the advantage of watercolor, where there's many different avenues to go through. Give it many different effects. There are some very intricate things, and there are some very loose things. And if you're a very, very tight painter in another medium, going to watercolors is wonderful because you loosen up a bit with your brush and your paints. And then you find, oh, my hand is a little bit different than it is there. Okay. I have one down in here. And we should be wrapping this up pretty soon. Let me pull into some more here. And let's add a little more of the lines here. I'm going to use a darker blue medium brush. Come down through here. Add a bubble here. I think all of you are going to be very happy working with this medium. You'll have such a good flow of your wrist, especially if you're a tight painter. You'll find that this will loosen you up a bit. Okay, I think we're just about done. And this is a great piece for you to kind of work on at home because it has a variety of colors and it gives you the different flows that could go everywhere, and your hand will feel good in every single size brush in this particular one, which is important because I'm going to use the little rigger right now. Come down around in here, come in here, here. add a little bit more detail. And this is where the rigger comes in handy. It has such long bristles on it, you have to be very careful the movements of it. And let's come down in here. Okay, I think I'm just about done with this, and hopefully you're going to be able to follow through on with the video on doing the fish. If you have some wonderful pictures of yours, don't try anything very complicated at first, okay? It does take a while to get your hand, and knowing the water and getting the paper, find all those things, get used to it. I've had a lot of fun doing this. I certainly hope that you've followed along with me with some of the things, and you've found a new and fascinating and exciting medium to work in. Thank you, and happy watercoloring. All right, so let's see if you remembered everything that I talked about today. We talked about our brushes, the type that you need to have. We talked about our palettes. And we talked about use of a masking tape. We talked about our watercolor paper, and most importantly, the strokes that are needed. We reviewed flat washes, grading, our beading so that we go into charging. We worked on wet to wet, wet to dry, and the charging. I hope all of this that you will continue to practice, because it really enables you to get to a point of knowing how your hand and your comfort zone of your hand and the water and the paint. We worked on a piece, a very simplicity piece, just showing you the variations of how the water can blend from color to color. We also worked with our masking fluid, if you remember, okay? You must let it dry. Don't ever put it on wet paper. Let it come off, and you have your white areas that you need. Once again, the very last piece that we worked on with the watercolor paper is a combination of all of the different blends and showing you how the water can blend down and flow, giving you the graded washes, using our rigger even into smaller lines. You're going to have so much fun. I've used this with Simply by Daler-Rowney. These are the products that are wonderful to work with, and my many thanks to everybody for listening.